Welcome to today's IS Speaker Series, where we connect parents with leading experts to explore future careers and to equip you with the tools that you need to have meaningful conversations with your children about their futures. Today, I am in the UK interviewing Professor Lisa McNeill, a Professor of Tectonics at the University of Southampton. She will talk to us about the evolving fields of ocean and earth sciences, and the essential skills that your children might need to explore and thrive in careers within that field in the future. I'm Gwartag. I'm the Head of Future Pathways at ISP. It's my pleasure to be with you here today. Thank you. And how are things in Southampton today?
Hello, nice to see you. They're great here. The sun is shining, and we're in a beautiful location by the sea in Southampton, which is ideal for the sorts of subjects that we study and research here.
Oh, sounds like a fantastic location. And I'm sure the students are also enjoying the lovely weather and the fresh sea air as well. Okay, so let's start by talking about you and a little bit about your background. Tell us what sparked your curiosity in, ocean and earth sciences.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually studied a natural sciences degree as an undergraduate, and I wasn't intending to go into this area of science. So I ended up graduating as a geologist, but that wasn't my initial plan. Having said that, as a child, I was really interested in natural history, had lots of collections of fossils and feathers and butterflies and all sorts of things. And I was really interested in all of the different science disciplines. And so when I, started studying geology within my natural sciences degree, it really captured my interest. First of all, learning to understand the planet around us. Also, there was an attraction of working outside and the field trips that were part of the program. And it really kind of gelled with me, this sort of balance of understanding the environment and combining all of the different science disciplines that I was interested in. So I ended up switching and specializing in geology at the end of that. And so I would say ocean earth science, or ocean science and earth science, they're perfect partners for these sorts of interests that you might have as a child. And we find a lot of students who study these areas, have been interested in these things for a long time. So yeah, that's how I came to do geology or earth science.
Okay, and you've mentioned, ocean science and earth science. Can you elaborate a little bit more about, the differences between both and what they mean?
Absolutely, yeah. We cover quite a range of different subjects here. So I'll try and sort of describe the different areas. So there's different subject areas. The common theme, though, is studying the environment of our planet and actually other planets as well, and solving environmental challenges and problems that we have today. So it includes geology, geophysics, environmental geoscience, oceanography, and marine biology. So those are the sorts of subjects that you would find ultimately degree programs offered in, but also potentially earth science or ocean science. So those are all sort of slightly different things, and they do cover a range of things. So I'll explain a little bit about what that sort of earth science versus ocean science is in a moment. But it's interesting because in school, you probably come across parts of these topics in what you're taught, but they won't be labelled as such. And this is sometimes a bit of a challenge. So we're trying to sort of make bigger efforts to inform it as part of this process, but also go out to schools and teachers and try and tell people about these subjects, because you will hear about elements of them in, for example, geography, physics, chemistry, and biology, but they won't necessarily be labelled as geology, oceanography, or marine biology. For example, volcanic hazards is geology, but it's taught in geography. So don't tell the geographers that, but so it's something that you won't necessarily have heard about in school. So earth science is the study of the whole Earth system. So it includes the land, oceans, atmosphere, the Earth's interior, and how they're connected. And it includes things like studying climate change in the past, geohazards like earthquakes and volcanoes, using Earth's resources and energy, but doing that sustainably and including sort of green energy and renewables, plate tectonics and how the Earth is formed, fossils and life on Earth. And also we use it to sort of build safely, so working with engineers, remediating and preventing pollution using the sort of chemistry of earth science, And also, things like finding ways to capture and store carbon. So lots of sort of applied areas as well as the sort of fundamentals of understanding the Earth. And then ocean science, a little bit different, but kind of lots of connections, is the study of the oceans, its processes and its impacts on the Earth's climate and the organisms that live in the oceans. And it includes oceanography, marine science, marine biology. Oceanographers tend to use the range of sciences, and they do things such as investigate ocean currents and look at modern and predict future climate patterns, look at sea level change, ocean chemistry and pollution, and some environmental challenges related to that, and connections with, how do we sustainably develop new energy sources, new mineral sources in the oceans. And marine biologists, not surprisingly, focus on the biological aspects of what's going on in the ocean, but they also need a good understanding of the physics and chemistry as well. So they look at physiology, ecology, genetics of the diverse range of species that we have in the oceans, all the way from the deepest oceans and seafloors to all the way to the coast. So it includes coral reefs, fisheries, marine mammals, through to the little tiny plankton that actually make up the largest part of the food web in the ocean. So there's a big range there. But hopefully, it's of interest to children who are interested in a wide range of sciences and the environment. So hopefully that gives you a flavour.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me then, what about careers related to ocean and earth sciences? What are the kind of traditional roles that
Mm.
might be available?
So again, there's a wide range. In earth science, you might traditionally, in geology, you might traditionally think of the oil and gas and mineral sectors. And obviously, things are changing in terms of whether or how we extract those sort of materials. But there's so much more to the career potential for earth scientists, and that's going to be increasingly so with time due to the sort of environmental aspects and challenges that we have today. So I'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment. So I did want to make sure it's clear that yes, there are still careers in those areas, but there's so much more to it. So other traditional areas would include things like engineering geology, hydrogeology, so the sort of geology of water systems, geotechnical surveying, so kind of using physics to interpret an image below the ground surface, and that's used for lots of different areas. Environmental consultancy has been a sort of a common area as well. Cartography and hydrographic surveying, so this is kind of mapping the seafloor or mapping the land surface and using technology for that. Assessing geological hazards and mitigating against them. And people have jobs in, the more obvious place might be working in an observatory on a volcano, but maybe less obvious is working in insurance companies who are interested and need to know about, the potential for these sorts of hazards. Working in government agencies and in policy for government, doing research is obviously a key part. Water companies, building construction companies, museums, and so on and so on. Ocean science, the traditional areas there have tended to be also environmental consultancy and working on the environmental impacts in industry and commerce, meteorology and climate modelling, obviously very important, working in conservation, so sort of biodiversity and sort of charities or other organisations, working in fisheries or ecology, also doing surveying, and again government agencies and labs. Oh, and aquaculture, probably another important area that might sort of be relevant to some of the schools and some of the countries that you're working with. So
Oh,
another long list.
yeah, that's a very broad list and a lot of opportunities there to
Yeah.
specialize and look at different careers. So, what would you say the main challenges maybe parents need to be aware of at this stage in terms of ocean and earth sciences?
Um, well, I see lots of opportunities rather than challenges, and I might, if it's okay, I might sort of come back and just sort of outline a bit more some of the more maybe the lesser known careers that are really becoming high impact because of environmental change. So the challenge, I suppose, we have as a population of Earth is how do we handle the sort of changing environmental situation and our impact on the Earth. And there are a lot of careers in these areas that handle those environmental challenges. So if it's okay, I'll sort of expand a little bit on those. So I've talked a little bit about environmental consultancy as being sort of a really important career, but increasingly, looking at things such as pollution and remediating and trying to improve on that. So that's an important area. Another area is identifying and extracting mineral resources, which I mentioned as sort of a more traditional area, but doing that in a sustainable way, and finding those mineral resources that we need for everyday high-tech devices and infrastructure like our mobile phones, electric cars, solar panels. That's something where earth scientists are involved. And then both earth and ocean scientists looking at things like impact of sea level rise and trying to sort of assess and reduce coastal erosion. It's something we're really aware of here on the south coast in the UK, and becomes increasingly a challenge with climate change. And I mentioned conservation, but increasing awareness of our need for conservation in the sort of ocean realm and the impacts of pollution. And another area that maybe isn't so obvious is using what we find in terms of marine organisms and their chemistry and biological processes for things such as medicine and pharmaceuticals. So we sort of probably are all aware of how sort of a lot of natural materials are used for medicines, and there's a lot of potential in the marine realm for that. And I just finish also with a couple of areas that maybe again even less expected. So because we deal with lots of data and complicated technologies, then even such as roles such as in finance or data scientists in many different sectors, we have those skills, or children who end up studying in those areas will have those skills. So there's a whole lot more there that may be even more unexpected in terms of the careers and opportunities that you could get into. And sorry, I'll keep talking for a bit longer, but you asked about challenges, and so I was sort of really turning that around about the challenges for us in terms of living on this planet, and some of the exciting opportunities that we can get from that in terms of careers in the future. But just I suppose another challenge, just coming back to the sort of practicalities of this, is what we study does need interest and knowledge in lots of different sciences. So I think that is one of the challenges, is if you've got a child who's really interested in science, managing to sort of maintain that interest across the board. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, in a moment. But keeping going those studies and skills in a range of sciences is useful and important, but can be a bit of a challenge when you've got children who are interested in lots of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the opportunities available. In 10, 20 years' time, how do you think that will
Mm,
evolve, and what will be the kind of major trends that will drive this change?
yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think, first of all, there will be just an increasing need for people who've got sort of quantitative and scientific knowledge that can be applied to the environment. So that's just going to increase. I think the demand for people with those skills and that knowledge. Jobs will be increasingly needing programming skills and the skills to be able to deal with large data sets. And I think you have some questions later about that. So things like using AI, and how do we do that now, and what might we do in the future? And certainly, yeah, there's going to be an increasing need for those sorts of skills to be able to use the technology and the equipment and to work with the data that's being collected. So that's going to be important. I think there's going to be more and more need for, I mentioned minerals that we need, and it's really interesting that I think for some of us, it's we're pulled in different directions, because obviously there have been great impacts on the planet in terms of mineral extraction, but we need mineral resources, particularly for these technological devices that we have today, and some of the tools that we have that will enable us to move to renewable energy and things like that. So it's going to be an increasing need for working out how to do that sustainably, and how to understand climate change. So some really exciting things that are going to evolve and just create more roles. Another thing that's, I think, is really important is the need for us to be able to communicate about science. And so that's for us as teachers of science subjects, but also for those that we educate. So that's going to be an increasing role, so that we can all talk to each other, we can talk to people in different professions, we can talk to government and policymakers and just our neighbours, about science and what it is and how we're using it and why it's so important. So I think that's going to become increasingly important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've talked about some of the exciting career opportunities emerging from the field, especially with, the technical transformations and, the use of AI. How is robotics going to transform ocean and earth science as well as AI? And, what are the possibilities there?
Yeah, it's interesting because we already use, for example, robotics to explore the ocean, the seafloor, and underneath the seafloor. Um, so there are, for example, vehicles that are autonomous and just sort of pre-programmed to go and collect data, and we use those close to the seafloor, for example, to get lots of detail. There are gliders, these small autonomous vehicles that sort of you have hundreds of them that are moving around the ocean collecting, for example, ocean temperature data and taking measurements, so that we've got more and more data to tell us how the oceans are responding to or controlling climate change. So we're actually already doing a lot in that area in ocean earth science. And I think another future area will be, I often go to sea on large research vessels, research ships, to collect data. And increasingly, for various reasons, that's probably going to become automated in terms of either the ship itself and us not needing to go to sea, or just how it operates. So yeah, there's definitely an increasing use there. We also use satellites for data collection, and all of these processes are generating very large data sets. We've got the tools now to collect data across the surface of the Earth, the interior of the Earth, and over long timescales. That means that we're generating really large data sets. And so AI is becoming increasingly important for trying to interpret those large data sets and complicated data sets to give us answers. And that's true both in research and in industry, in the commercial world. So yeah, those are definitely going to become increasingly used, I think. And we're already using those tools. So sort of our research students who are doing PhDs and master's degrees are often using those tools or learning how to use those tools.
That's really interesting. So across all the A to Z topics that we've covered, data plays, an increasingly more prominent role within different careers
Mm,
um, of the future as well.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so what are the other skills students might need to develop or children might need to develop
yeah.
now to prepare themselves?
So those sorts of skills that I just talked about, I should add that when it gets to sort of university level, we're definitely, increasing the sort of skills teaching in those areas. But at an earlier stage, in terms of children that are thinking about these sorts of subjects or trying to gain some interest in them, I think curiosity is key. And in our case, about the world around you and environment. So anything that you can do to encourage that is good. Interest in science, picking up broad skills and interests in science, that's definitely key. Any kind of head start in computing skills or maths and coding, things like that, that's always useful. And makes life a bit easier when you get to study something further on as well, and also hopefully sparks people's interest. I think reading about the subject in any kind of form that you can find is good. So in any news or social media or blogs or TV, science magazines, because that sort of really helps just to sort of show you some of the things I've been describing, in terms of how we use these subjects and why they're so important at the moment, for all these environmental changes. So yeah, and any opportunities for work experience, useful as well. There's various other things to take advantage of. If you're visit museums, natural history and science museums have some fantastic collections around the world, and many of them have exhibits on sort of state-of-the-art projects in these areas as well. So those are good opportunities to
Yeah,
sort of
okay.
just develop interests as well as skills.
Well, yeah, and I think sparking curiosity is the start of the journey, isn't it? And you know,
Mm,
recognizing areas of passions, areas of interest, and obviously you specialize much later in your kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
in your career or in your graduate journey. So yeah, I think parents have a great role. You know, nature and the sea and the environment is all around us. But would you be able to recommend any like online resources or extracurricular activities? I mean, you mentioned work experience, but are there any kind
Mm,
of courses or programs or volunteering opportunities and, you know, websites that we can advise
yeah.
parents to use as
So
resources?
I've sent along to you that you can hopefully share some links to websites that give some more information, both about what these subjects are, but also linking to some resources. So hopefully that helps. Um, and certainly I can answer questions if people have other particular questions. Feel free to contact me as well. But I would look out for any kind of sort of festivals of science or open days that are going on in institutions or universities or others on earth science or marine science. And that includes things like fossils and dinosaurs. You know, that's very much part of the subject that we're studying here. And that obviously appeals to younger children as well. So looking out for those sorts of activities. So, for example, in the UK, we annually have the British Science Week with many activities, and Southampton gets involved in that. And there's lots of activities for all ages of children and adults as well, of course. So I think looking out for those sorts of activities, particularly early on, is a good way of sort of sparking interest and getting across that passion for the subject. And yeah, that sort of some of the lists that I've provided provide some sort of web resources. But I think a lot of this is actually kind of getting out there and seeing things in person as well. So I think looking out for these opportunities locally is a key part. And there are many festivals, as you can imagine. It's as subjects they're very appealing. So you've got dinosaurs, you've got volcanoes, you've got large marine mammals, and the wealth of life in the oceans. They're really exciting topics. So they tend to be quite commonly covered in museums and sort of science festivals. So I think look out for those sorts of things to spark people's interest.
Okay, well, that's fantastic advice for parents. Um, I've really enjoyed this session. I think ocean and earth sciences, you know, it's all around us. It lends itself to some great opportunities in the future. Um, as you said, there are many opportunities, but also challenges that need solutions as well. So really appreciate your insight there on the future careers. So thank you very much for your time. And for those watching, remember, the world is evolving rapidly, and the skills we nurture in our children today will define their success tomorrow. Do follow the A to Z speaker series for more sessions and look at the possibilities for the future of your child. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you for the next episode.